Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive deep into a hidden world, a microscopic battle that decides the fate of all our pollution. And we're going to meet nature's powerful but sometimes overwhelmed cleanup crew.
So let's just start with a question that gets right to the heart of the whole problem. When we throw something away, where does it actually go? And more importantly, for how long?
Well, the answer can be kind of shocking. A paper towel, gone in about a month. Cardboard, a couple of months. But an aluminum can, that's sticking around for 50 years. And then you get to a plastic bottle or a disposable diaper, we're talking 450 years. I mean, that's going to outlive you, your kids, and their kids. It's staggering.
So what is it about this stuff that makes it so incredibly hard for nature to deal with? Because it goes way beyond just being, dirty.
Okay, so the official definition is pretty simple. A pollutant is really just anything that's in a place where it shouldn't be, and because it's there, it's causing harm. It could be anything from industrial waste to something natural like volcanic ash.
To really get our heads around the danger, we can look at 4 key things. Let's call them the 4 Ps of problem pollutants. First, there's persistence. How long does it stick around? Then, its chemical properties. How does it react with everything? Propagation. How far can this stuff travel? And finally, pileup. Does it build up inside living things?
Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because it kind of flips our intuition on its head. You'd think a highly toxic chemical is automatically the worst thing, right? But if it breaks down really fast, its threat is over pretty quickly. A chemical that's maybe less toxic but is super persistent, well, that can cause way more damage over a much longer time. And that persistence leads to this terrifying process called bioaccumulation. It's wild. A pollutant doesn't just sit there, it actually climbs the food chain. It gets absorbed by tiny organisms, then a bigger thing eats them, then a bigger thing eats that. And at every single step, that toxin gets more and more concentrated. It's a journey to the top, and not in a good way.
But, okay, it's not all doom and gloom. Nature has its own defense system, a powerful microscopic cleanup crew. And really, these guys are the heroes of our story today.
The process they use is called biodegradation. And what that means is you have these microorganisms, think bacteria and fungi, and they essentially eat pollution. They break down all these complex, nasty contaminants into smaller, simpler, and usually harmless little pieces.
And here's the kicker. These tiny organisms are pretty much the only agents that can do this job. And for them, it's not just a cleanup duty. They are literally using these contaminants as food, as a source of carbon and energy, so they can grow and multiply.
So that brings up a pretty obvious question, right? If these microbes are so great at their job, why does our trash stick around for hundreds of years? Why do they sometimes take so long to even get started? Well, scientists have a name for that delay. They call it the acclimation period. It's this lag time between when a pollutant first shows up and when the microbes finally start to break it down. And this period is a massive hurdle. It can last anywhere from just a few hours to many, many months.
And there are a bunch of reasons for this holdup. Sometimes the right kind of microbe is there, but there are just too few of them to make a difference. Or maybe other toxins in the area are actually poisoning the cleanup crew. They could even be getting eaten by other microorganisms. And this one is just incredible. Sometimes they just need time to evolve. They have to mutate or literally swap genes with each other to develop the right tools to digest whatever new thing we've thrown at them.
But here's where the story takes another really wild turn. Because even when the microbes finally get to work, the results aren't always what we hope for. It turns out not all biodegradation is created equal.
Yeah, the process can go one of 2 ways. The goal obviously is detoxification. The molecule gets changed into something less harmful. Awesome. But then there's the nightmare scenario. Activation. This is where a chemical that was maybe only kind of bad gets transformed by the microbes into a new product that is even more toxic than what you started with.
And that's a really sobering thought, isn't it? The very biological process that's designed to clean up our world can, in some cases, accidentally create an even bigger, more dangerous problem in its place.
So with all this complexity, these delays, the risk of making things worse, how in the world do scientists even measure if the cleanup is working? How do you keep score in a microscopic battle you can't even see?
Well, they use a few key tests, and each one tells a different part of the story. You've got BOD, which basically measures how much of the pollution is food that the microbes can actually eat. Then there's COD, which gives you a snapshot of the total pollution, the stuff they can eat and the stuff they can't.
And DOC tracks the removal of carbon, which is like the pollutant's basic building block. Now here's what's so cool. When you compare these numbers, you get a really clear picture. So in this example, the total pollution, the COD, is 400, but the part the microbes can actually break down, the BOD, is only 200. Right away, that tells scientists that in this specific case, nature's cleanup crew can only solve half the problem on its own.
And that leaves us with one last really big question. We depend on this incredible, invisible army of microbes to process our waste. Their abilities are powerful. They can even evolve in real time. But as we've seen, they have limits. And we just have to wonder, is their power, is it enough to keep up with the sheer scale of pollution we create?